Hi, welcome to another episode of the Making Sense of Politics podcast with me, Kate Carruthers.
And me, Nancy Georges. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Nancy. Two times in 1 week. It's
I
getting to
know.
be a habit.
I know. I'm going to be spoiled. Well, September we did 2. October we're doing 2. November we're going to the podcast. What's it called? Punters Politics
Punters
Lobbying
Politics.
Dinner. So that's our November. So December we've just got to get organised, which is good. We went to a very interesting talk, which we'll share more about when we've got a bit more info to share. But yeah, it was great. That was my fun part. Yeah, the talk short, but seeing you was always a pleasure. So
Always a pleasure, but it was fascinating there. So, well, let's make a start then.
yes, the week
So,
or not the month in review, a couple of weeks in review since we last spoke.
yeah. So this one was your one.
It was so he's said so many great words in the lead up to the election before he became PM, and since then he hasn't really followed through on very many promises and actions. However, he did wow the UN General Assembly and wowed a lot of people with what he said, and the feeling behind what he was saying overall was having this whole idea of together we stand, I think, which was very important given that in the lead up to the UN General Assembly, which this was his first. I didn't realise. How did he miss the first one? But anyway, this was his first, and he was very impressive. Apparently, a lot of leaders praised him. But in the lead up, Trump did say that anybody who does recognise Palestine's statehood would have massive ramifications, as you can imagine. But he and many others went on ahead and professed their support for the statehood. And he also did talk about this whole idea of, even though we are far away, we're all about alliances, very much about being together in the challenge of climate change. So, I mean, I watched it and I thought it was a very interesting, powerful speech. And if he wasn't our PM, I still would have watched it because I thought he was quite compelling. And I haven't found him to be like that since the first election. So,
Well, that's really interesting. So, I think a lot of the leaders in the West, like Carney as well, are sort of saying us middle powers need to stick together. So it's good. And it was good that they all stood up for Palestinian statehood.
absolutely. I think, I'm really looking forward to doing our US politics Trump deep dive. But I
Oh
think
my God, we're going to do several. I don't think you can do it in one.
I think in part 4 of 10. But I think, and the whole thing is so tragic. But I think the greatest thing for me has been watching so many countries and Australia go, okay, hang on a minute. And actually, yes, they're the biggest and the loudest and with the most money, but now we need to actually do what makes sense for us now and what makes sense for us in this modern world. And especially with Europe, finally Europe put their big girl pants on and stood up for themselves and went, hey, look, we're a few of us in this boat, let's get together. But I find how Albanese has been doing it too, Kate, has been very professional, can I say professional, and statesman-like. I've been impressed with how he's carrying himself and the alliances he's making, even if he did wear the wrong shirt. Easy to do. We've all done that before.
Also, that tie. Pink tie. Not sure. Not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah,
Anyway,
especially under the lights. Who advised him?
somebody who doesn't understand colours. Anyway,
but hang on. Sorry, because people tear women apart. And can I just say his hair's getting higher and higher. Whoever's doing that tease is doing a really good job.
Yeah, well, it's fair. It's fair play. If it's fair play for women, it's fair play for men. But yeah, that pink tie, bad choice, Albo.
Yep, 100%. You linked this one. I love.
This one is the Scott Morrison, The Gift That Keeps Giving. Tell us all about it, Nancy.
Well, I have to be honest with you. When I saw this link come up, I thought, oh, for God's sake, why are we thrashing a dead horse? But I think the interesting thing is that the Institute, I love the Australia Institute, honestly, they're so good. But what they're saying here is that yes, this was a big mistake. And we've got a lot of hindsight, right? Now, looking back at this. And you and I were talking about GST the other night too, Kate.
We all knew it was a bad idea at the time.
Insane. But they are giving some really good suggestions around, okay, what can we do now to move forward? And Kate and I had this exact same discussion on Tuesday night, where we were like, okay, we need serious reform in the next 5 years to do this. And it's so funny because I had the solar panel man here yesterday, David, very good, very impressive. I'll report more on that later. And he was just saying that he was like, you know what, my whole weekend is just paperwork, and it's just all the GST.
I
So
know the collection of the GST on behalf of the government. Yes, it's evil.
I think this idea of, okay, number one, I love that they're pointing the finger at him, because not enough people do point the finger at him. So many people invite him to speak and give his opinion when obviously, what value is it? But in my opinion, allegedly, whatever I've got to say for YouTube. But the other part of it too is it's saying, okay, this was a real big mistake, but what can we do to go forward? And I think this needs to always be the conversation. My mother used to say that, okay, that's what's wrong. What can we do to make it right? Do you know what I mean? Like that whole thing of, well, that's okay. Yep. Okay. Mistake, problem. What do we need to do to move forward is very proactive.
And maybe it'd be good next time to present some of the Australia Institute's ideas and then some of the alternatives,
Yep.
and
Let's
talk
do
about
that.
them. Yeah.
I think that's it's important too, Kate. Like, as I've only ever had a business in GST time, but I think we need to inform. Like, if my friends knew about that too, then they could also vote accordingly when the time comes to make sure that they're supporting small business in that way.
Yeah. And, it's not on anyone in the Liberal Party's radar because there are a lot of small business people there, but they're not really speaking out about that because they just seem to think it's the way it is. But it could be better. It could be easier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, this one is mine. And, Greg Hunt, former minister in the Morrison government, suddenly turns up working for the Weirdo Brethren religious group. So this is the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, who are anti-women, anti-gay, anti-everything, anti-climate change. And they were out in force campaigning on behalf of the Liberals at the last federal election, like huge numbers of them. And I just think it's really telling that he is actually working for them now. When he was Minister for Health, he gave them millions in COVID contracts. So, more dodgy stuff along the lines of what we've spoken about before. But, just so dodgy.
It's unethical. Like, I wish it was illegal, but the independents are very much pushing the actually all the independents. I haven't seen anybody push back against it. They've all been pushing for this to change, that there must be legislation that politicians cannot go and work for the lobby groups that they connected with, or there's no jobs for pollies in those industries after they leave government. And I think that is a must, because beside the fact that the Brethren also gave millions to the election, then they get millions in funding. Like, it's so corrupt. I like, it might not be illegal, but it's so morally corrupt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
God,
totally.
number one, why do they exist? If they had everybody, go off and live on your own island. But to take their jobs, I think we said this before, didn't we? Was it Monique Ryan pointed out that the last seven or eight ministers for energy have all gone to work for mining companies?
Yep. And defence ministers all go to work for defence. So, it's a thing. We need to stop it. There needs to be at least a decent interval in between.
And I think if 3 to 5 years, I think, is a healthy one. But, the interesting thing is the people that aren't supporting it are the people that have got their jobs lined up. That's a given.
Yeah. And this is just more dodgy stuff. There was a $315,000 retirement payment to a senior parliamentary department official, and there were multiple procedural failures. There was relationships in the department. There was all sorts of stuff. So this kind of practice where people are doing stuff that when anybody from outside just looks at it, goes, that's kind of dodgy. But it's just how they do business. So I just really think this is all due for reform
Absolutely. So,
going forward.
and I think if you and I did this, would we get the same treatment? No.
Possibly not. Possibly not. But some good stuff that the Queensland Liberal National Party, so a shout out to them. They actually passed some new laws restricting the use of the so-called good character references when they're sentencing convicted sex offenders. So this is how sex offenders used to get off with light sentences, because they'd get a bishop or somebody to say, oh, they're a good bloke, they should be let off. So they're no longer able to use good character references. So that was this case here is a pedophile who tried to do that. So that's a really good move by them, and I'm really happy to see it.
I was shocked that it's even a thing. Who
Yeah,
cares if you've got a good character? You raped a woman, you violated a child, you did something awful to another person. Who cares? You're not a
so,
nice
so
person.
Tony Abbott gave a good character reference for a church
Hell,
pedophile back in the day who got off, and I was sickened by it then, and that's why I'm so glad to see the LNP make this change. So good on them.
considering they want to make abortion illegal, I was shocked by
Yeah.
that move totally. Yeah, I applaud it. I applaud it. We're doing a first here today. We're going to play you some of this video. John Paybon is a very clever person who there's links all over and you can see that. But I want you to listen to this because Australia is, and we know this, well, this is how I met Kate, right? A big, big smart brain. Australia is so full of clever people, and we're still relying on digging things out of the ground because we can't turn these clever ideas into actual money in industry just simply because there's no sheer will to do it, not because there's no ability. And I think he encapsulates it perfectly in his saying. And also on a global scale, we are ranked so poorly because we don't do this. So can you press play, please?
Australia ranks 105th on the Harvard Economic Complexity Index, behind countries like Botswana, Zambia, and Pakistan. That's something I learned about when I first arrived here, and it's always stuck with me. Before anyone starts yelling, hey, Seppo, go home, let me explain what it means and why it matters. I learned about the index from scholar Professor Lars Konen, the inaugural City of Melbourne Chair of Resilient Cities. He calls it the Australian paradox, a country that's full of, quote, smart cities in a rich but dumb economy. Australia consistently ranks among the top countries in the world for innovation inputs like research, funding, universities, talent, and infrastructure. Nationally, though, Australia struggles to convert brainpower into breakthroughs like patents, high-tech exports, or new ventures. That means Australia invests a lot, but produces way less than it should. Our innovation efficiency, how well we turn those ideas into impact, ranks around 58%. But countries like China and Switzerland, they come in at over 90%. Why? Well, the Australian economy is structurally simple.
So that's really good. We don't have time to play the whole thing.
Yep.
Recommend people go and have a listen to him. He's one of my favorites on TikTok. But I think he's on other platforms too. But that is so true. So one of my former colleagues at University of New South Wales, Martin Green, he literally invented solar panels, was one of the inventors of them, and couldn't get them commercialized, and that went to China. And so Australia now buys solar panels from China when back in the day we could have owned that as an industry. So that's a really, really good point that you're making, Nancy.
So criminal, right? Because I think and imagine then if we have this economy that is driven by the smartness, the brains, then kids are going to be also learning in a much more interesting way. We're going to be able to recognize and leverage all of this skill and knowledge. And the thing that he said that really was interesting as well is duopolies reduce innovation. We've got Coles and Woolies, so there's no innovation in supermarkets
Well,
because
we've got
they dominate.
Telstra and Optus. We are the land of duopolies, and it might be good to sort of do a deep dive into why that kind of thing happens here.
So I think it's a good thing to watch out and champion if you see anything that you can push forward, so we can use our brains and not our soil. Thanks.
Yes. All right, this one. Oh, still got my name on it. All right, but this one. change that.
Sorry.
Quality control is not one of our strengths. This one was really interesting to me because there's a new Green Party leader in the UK, and the Greens were not even on my radar, but he's saying some really sensible stuff, and he is sort of positioning himself as a progressive voice, slightly to the left of the Lib Dems, but nevertheless a sane progressive voice. And he was speaking out against Trump. And I loved what he said about the deals with big companies were akin to selling the country down the river to tech bros, multimillionaires and billionaires who do not care about British workers, which I thought was really quite a
Spot
good
on.
comment to be making.
Yep. Spot on. I think it's we watching the Greens all over has been very interesting. I hope they do become a viable third.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that Labor doesn't seem to want to be a progressive voice anymore. They seem to want to be Tory light.
Yep.
So there is a gap that the Lib Dems don't seem to be able to capitalise on, and there's the Greens with this new leader. So I think it's a really interesting space.
Me too. And young Ian Dunn here, he's saying the same thing. He's saying we need to have a progressive voice that is loud in the UK and not Farage, because that's not progressive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the UK think he's progressive. Maybe they need to define it.
Oh my God. If that's how they're thinking he's progressive, it's just terrifying.
This is one that the freedom of speech one is, sorry, Kate, just if we can go back a sec. This is really concerning to me because this is going back to, it's not only checking, well, you know, they're trying to justify checking people's social media. And I think this is the big thing of, I'm going to check your social media to see if you've been saying anything wrong about the government, and then something's going to happen to you. And I just think that that's a really weak and authoritative way to be running a country. And yes, they're saying that, oh, it's because of social media, because somebody can say something on social media that incites a riot, and a woman did do that. But I think to do this is becoming more and more concerning for me, especially watching
this is why I'm saying that Labor is basically Tory light, and the actions against the the pro-Palestinian protest in the UK, where they're arresting aged pensioners who are daring to protest, is just the same sort of thing that you would expect from Margaret Thatcher.
Absolutely. Well, it's also too, what they're going to start with that, but they're not going to end with that, are they? Then it will become about anything.
Now, this one was one of yours, so tell us about this.
This is a very, you know, coming from the reason my family is here because we are Christian. So I've always had this, I've been very aware of the fact that sometimes religion comes into politics, comes into life. And watching the American Christian extremism coming to Australia, I personally think that Australians on the whole are not going to embrace it on the whole, like so many Americans do. I don't know if you agree with that, Kate, but what is concerning is that there is a very small, loud, violent group that do embrace it. And then what comes from that? And I like this article. Kate shared this with me, actually. I get so many great sites from you, Kate. I used to I do dog videos and Kate's news websites that she sends me in the morning now. That's what I wake up to. It's interesting. So they were saying, you know, just a mere 3 weeks before this article was written, if you'd said to somebody, or a month before it was written, if you'd said to somebody that we would be seeing Christian extremism in Australia to the scale that we were, they would have laughed. But 26th of August, 2 police were shot and killed by somebody who was claiming to be an extremist. The sovereign citizen movement is coming to the fore, and they're becoming more and more prevalent. We've got then the March for Australia rallies then happened 5 days later. And people, when they discovered that neo-Nazis and white supremacists had organised them, it did not deter them from attending the marches, which is also very concerning. 10th of September, Charlie Kirk is killed in the USA. Look, they're saying it's by an extremist, who knows? But he himself is sort of an
A
extremist.
right-wing extremist.
A
So
right,
that's the
yeah,
other
sorry,
thing.
a right-wing extremist killed. Yes, correct. Because he's also so two right-wing together, folks. We didn't have a left. It's very right-wing extremist. Somebody who is technically on the same side as him, and that I think is the one that sort of lit a bit of a light around the world. And so many people were like, "Oh my God, poor Charlie." And I know we said this last pod as well. Poor Charlie is the man who said some gun deaths are necessary, and if that's the cost that they've got to have for them to retain their gun rights, so be it. So
Yeah. So
speakers,
no biggie that he died,
right?
because gun right trump his right to live.
Exactly. So those that live by the sword, hey. But also he was saying that if his daughter were raped and fell pregnant, she would be forced to carry the child to term. So we're not talking about people who will perhaps would never say this out loud. Maybe I'm sure millions around the world think this stuff, but now people are emboldened to say it out loud. I find it horrific that somebody would say that. If that was my mother or father, they would be like, the person that did that to my daughter would be skinned alive and hung at my front door, and my daughter would not be carrying a baby. Like, do you know what I mean? It's such a bizarre concept, but we're seeing that. We also see that here, right, Kate, with babies and children dying in hospital because dying because their parents won't allow them to get medical help. So it's not just about it's really all encompassing in their lifestyle. But then on the 14th of September, like 3 weeks after that first incident, we had the confrontation at Camp Sovereign, where a male Nazi, they're saying, sorry, he is a Nazi. He was on the Nazi side. He literally punched women on camera in front of people, beaten. Like, it's just insane. And I think we're seeing it more. And I also think we're probably seeing it more because it fits somebody's agenda. But it is more to the fore, and it is being normalized by the way we see it. So it is something to really understand, not to be desensitized by. I think it's so important.
Yeah,
Don't be
definitely.
desensitized.
And that leads us into the need to be media literate. And you shared this one with me.
But,
Um,
and I was
so
like,
tell me
this
about
is
this one.
insane. It's James Tallarico. So yes, he's an American politician, but I think he's doing what a lot of politicians should be doing globally.
What Democrats should be doing? Oh my God.
What all of them. He actually, interestingly, Kate, President Obama called him out, actually named him by name and said he's one to watch. He's a really good guy. So there's a lot of really smart people who are, singing his praises. But he literally just stopped her mid-sentence and said, you know what nobody's asked me about? The cost of healthcare, the cost of childcare, the cost of housing. Instead of focusing on trans athletes who are 1% of the population, undocumented people who are 1% of the population, why aren't we talking about these things? And you know who we should be talking about? Which 1%? The billionaires who were, and their puppet politicians. I love that so much because he stopped her in that conversation. And this week, George Stephanopoulos, did you see that when he cut VP Vance off? He literally he asked him a question. Vance tried to take it down another road. He asked him the question again, tried to take it down the other road, and he said, Vice President Vance, thanks for your time, and cut him off. And Vance is like, this is what we need to be seeing more and more. And I think it's a really great thing.
It'll be interesting to see how much of that happens in America as the media starts to shift over there. And we are going to do a deep dive on the US.
Yep. Every day there's more and more
soon.
stories. Fox even called out the media because they're trying to censor media. So yeah, it's good.
All right. So I wanted to just start to call out different leaders around the world who seem to have the courage of their convictions and who seem to be on the right side of history. So this is Simon Harris, who is a politician from Ireland. He used to be the PM. He's not now. He's a minister. And he's been steadfast in speaking out. The Irish people have generally been on the side of speaking out against genocide. They're very sensitive to that issue because of the British famine that they suffered. But I just really wanted to start to have this, and maybe I'll have it as a regular thing, to call out different politicians from around the world who speak out really eloquently on what I call the right side of history.
I think, and I didn't know about him till you shared him with me, and I really enjoyed listening and watching him.
Hmm. Now,
Superstar.
this one is probably worth mentioning it, and
Yeah.
this is one that is really important because these are the tactics that all authoritarian regimes all do in the same order when they get into power. So the first thing is they delegitimize the press. The Nazis did it in the 1920s and 30s. Trump did it before his first election. He called them the lying press, which is the same thing that the Nazis used to call them. They used to call them the Lügen press, so the lying press. They politicize the elite and institutions. So Trump is literally doing this now with the universities. He's doing it with the media. He's co-opting the military and police. So he is literally sending National Guard into Democrat cities as police, and they're starting to quash dissent. They've been scapegoating the Democrats. They talk about them as vermin and stuff. They've been undermining elections for quite a while, and he's not trying to rewrite the laws because that's actually hard work. He's ignoring the laws, and the Supreme Court is helping him. So it's actually really fascinating to watch him run through this very very typical authoritarian playbook in a slightly different way to other leaders, but very much on the same track.
Well, Project 2025 was written with these 7 steps in mind, right? So they got
Yeah,
to jump up and could exploit it more.
yeah. All right. So this was one you shared with me. Tell us about this one, Nancy.
Do you know? And now, can I just say up front, textuality and orality, stupid American ways to say based on text, based orally, or orally, or textually. Like, so I'm not condoning those words because they really hurt me to hear and type. However, I really like this because, we demonize so much media, tech, or we don't, but, tech gets demonized. And, you know, the heading is how literacy as we know it is ending. But what the gentleman on the top, which I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but doesn't he have an amazing library room? I want one of those. And
Yeah.
he's saying, look, we're actually not getting dumber. In fact, we're getting smarter. But and he said, and by example, we're here on a podcast. People are not reading long form news. Journalists are not writing long form articles. We're now doing this through podcasts, and in our ears. We're not sort of doing it through our eyes. And he wasn't. Interestingly, he wasn't poo pooing it, but he was also lamenting how sad it is that it will be gone. That this will be gone also, or will it be gone, or will we come back to it? Maybe we can have both. But the interesting thing was there is a change in literacy, but he's not saying it's going down and it's bad. He's just saying that this is changing. And this should also then be changing how we teach children and how we teach students at university.
Well, it reminds me of something we were talking about the other night when we caught up, and I was talking about how we're at the very start of this paradigm shift from the world of applications, where we interact with applications and we type stuff into applications, and we're about to shift into a world where we talk to a generative AI interface and it goes off and does things. So our phones will not have all the apps that we've got now on them. They will just have a generative interface that will go out and find stuff that we want it to do. And that's a big shift, and it's actually the technology is shifting that way. But this thing of going back to what they call orality, it's kind of harking back. So if you think about the times of Abraham Lincoln in during the Civil War, they used to do speeches for 2 hours. And people used to sit and listen to speeches that were 2 hours long by politicians because that was just what they did in those days. And then we kind of lost it over the years and we started to consume newspapers and stuff. So I kind of feel like we're kind of getting back to that old way of consuming information because not a lot of people could read back in those days.
Yeah, and I think it's also too. The interesting thing is that then that gets married with you also then seek out the people who resonate with you. So you choose who you watch and listen to as well, right? So it becomes a little bit more integrated.
Yeah. So we've got some media recommendations. So this one is called Trustworthy Media, and they've got a great list of mainly US and Canadian independent media. So that's a really great resource if you're interested in those jurisdictions to go and have a look at. So we're going to try and showcase different parts of the world and their free media, independent media. In particular in the US, that's going to be an increasingly interesting space as Trump starts to close down media freedom. So
They've done that this week, haven't they?
So they've just made it so that if you want to report on the Pentagon, you've got to sign up to only agree to share stuff that they permit you to. And a whole lot of journalists and their media outlets didn't sign it, so they all walked out.
I think
So
the only one was OAN, wasn't it, Kate? Only one has signed. Not even Fox signed up to it.
Yeah. And we all know that Fox is just entertainment, not even news, but it was too much even for them.
Well, I think it's also too, then where do you draw the line? You know, okay, so we're going to censor it's censorship for all intents and purposes. It's like reading the White House website, which is
which is what they want to do, which is the same thing that Viktor Orban did in Hungary. He followed that 7-step playbook when he came into power, and you know there's not much free media in that jurisdiction either. So it's why they do what they're doing. The interesting thing will be over time how many of these US-based ones can survive, and maybe they will have to move the hosting of them outside the American jurisdiction, and then there'll be the challenge of will Americans be able to see it? Is the US going to do something like the Great Firewall of China or something?
Yeah,
which it could. So it's
he's
an
trying to do it with
world.
TikTok, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, it's all just so weird. So wrong. Women's health, our favourite topic. Oh, I forgot to add a slide for anyway next week.
It is on the 18th of October. So tomorrow is World Menopause Day.
Fantastic.
Well, tomorrow for Australia. We're recording on the 17th of October. So tomorrow for us is World Menopause Day. And it's a good time to just start to think about it and think, if you're a woman, do I even understand it? Do I know what's going to happen? Do I know what I can do about it? We need to start to talk to each other, because one of the things that I've realized is women haven't really talked to each other about it.
Yeah.
It's been like an almost shameful kind of secret, and we need to just get rid of that and just start to talk about it freely thinking. And then the other thing, I've got a friend who's actually doing her PhD on menopause at work, and I didn't realize until I participated in her research that a lot of women are dropping out of the workforce during menopause because they can't function in an office environment anymore, and that's through things like really serious hot flushes and stuff. So I think one of the interesting things will be is if we can start to be more open about this, and we can start having real conversations, and we can start to have those conversations in the workplace, so we stop losing those senior women from the workplace. But a large number of women literally drop out of the workforce as soon as they hit menopause, which I was not aware of.
It's so very wrong, and it like you said, well, women, we're supposed to power on. Oh, menopause, yes, I had this, but I just went through and I powered on, and or it was literally like you heard, oh my God, menopause was just horrific. Like there was nothing sort of in between to have that discussion. But I think it's so important to have that discussion from a young age as well, to start talking to young women about looking after their hormonal health, looking after their reproductive health, that, if something is not normal, if something is not is something a little bit off, go and get help. And I think the big thing, like I know you and I say this every podcast and almost every time we talk about this, is that menopause is sort of like the new black, because so many women are our age now and they're going through it. And you look at, there's some really great podcasts and information about it as well, because now women have gone, I couldn't find anything. Davina McCall, I know she gets a lot of flack, but she was one of the first people in the UK to actually have a podcast around this and be talking to experts. And Diary of a CEO, Stephen, I can't remember his
I
surname.
can't remember his name either. I know who you
Yeah,
mean, though.
but he's had some really, really good experts, specialists, doctors, talking about women's health and how little information and resources there has been given to actually specifically looking at and solving women's health problems. And when you think about women's health problems, or issues, they are so linked with the continuation of the planet, right? Pregnancy, post-pregnancy, menopause, like it's all due to our reproductive system. So, I mean, I love that men are now starting to go, hang on a minute, there's a big inequality here. And they're bringing women into the conversation to discuss it in places maybe we wouldn't have seen it. So absolutely, Kate. I think the more and more we talk about it, we really should do one, even just to start people on different paths, to find different resources and just some different ways to get it. If your doctor doesn't like to talk about it, get a new doctor. Like, it's not, I've had 7 doctors in my whole life. I've probably had, up until 10 years ago, I had 4 doctors, and in the last 10 years I've had 7 doctors, because they come and go in the area where we live. And I've found it really hard to find a good doctor, but I have really good naturopath and really good acupuncturist and found good chiro. But it's so important to have somebody who leads that discussion. And I have my gynae is amazing, and he answers all my questions. I still SMS him now and ask questions. But I think it's so important to have these resources and find I think the first way, rather, people don't know where to find information because they don't know what to ask online. But I think, to Kate's point, if you talk about it and make it normal, and have I don't know, obviously this wasn't in Australia, Kate, but I have seen that women are being given 3 days off a month for reproductive issues. So for young women, that's endometriosis. For older women, that is menopause related issues, or work from home opportunities. So I think it's so important to do that. It took, how many decades did it take to get us to support women coming back into the workforce after having babies? And this is sort of along that line. But I did personally, because when I was having my fun with fibroids, I was talking to everybody about it. And so many women my age and younger were just like, we're talking about this. And then they, the next time we caught up, we'd be all in depth. I talk about it in front of men. Poor Jace, he
Yeah,
hears it
that's what we
all.
need to do. We need to just be very open about it and talk about it, because it is part of life, and it's
And with your
something that
kids,
happens.
Kate, your kids,
Yeah.
in families, we need to. My brother was the first one to when I got my period, he was the first one that found out, because poor thing, I screamed and he ran into the bathroom. Like, it's just because it was in our house. It was like we were waiting for this amazing day, and normalize it. My mum used to say to me, if you have a sore elbow, it's the same thing as having a sore stomach because of your periods. It's all part of your body. So.
Mhm.
Yeah. Happy World Menopause Day, everybody.
Yes, happy World Menopause Day. Now, it's important to do the good
I
news,
love it.
and this one is my favorite one so far,
Well done, Kate.
because it includes nuns, and I have a soft spot for nuns. I was brought up Catholic, and I was very lucky to have a very good relationship with our local monastery and our local nuns. So I didn't have the bad Catholic things that many people have had. So I don't. But this was, I love it, because these nuns ran away. They had been forcibly, and I love this story because it plays into, we all want to age in place. We all want to age on our own terms, and we don't want to have our agency removed from us. And so apparently these nuns were forcibly removed from their convent against their will back in December 2023, and they were sent to a retirement home, and they ran away. And they went back to their convent, which is still sitting there, and some of their former students and a locksmith helped them.
I
So
love it. Well, we do that for our favourite nuns, right? Because I was the same as you. I had the best nuns. Well, we had
Yeah,
a couple of nutcases, but that's them everywhere. But
all the nuns except Sister Maria. Sister Maria was evil. But
ours was, what was her, Sister Philippa? She's gone now, so
there's
anybody that's still
always
around,
one.
there's always one. But are they back in the convent, Kate?
Yeah. They've moved back in, and and as one of them said, I'm so pleased to be home. I was always homesick at the care home. I'm so happy and thankful to be back. But I think it raises a really important issue for everyone. Is end of life as we age. We want to be able to age in place, and I know in Australia we're doing a lot to do that, so that trying to improve resources so people can age in place,
Yeah.
because, people really don't want to go to retirement homes. Um, but I love it that they ran away. I love it that they just got themselves back and went back.
And
And
they're still nuns, right? They like look at them. They haven't gone okay off with the habit. They've still got their nuns, and they look like old nuns. Like
yep,
they're just gorgeous. But I think
yep,
exactly as you say, it's that whole thing of, I mean, nursing homes. How many royal commissions do you need to know that you never want to go into one? But it's
mm,
also too that whole thing about the dignity of being. I mean, we don't have kids, so we've got quite a few friends that don't have children as well. And we talk about the when we get older, what does that look like? And we know that we want to be in our home, but not having children, then do we have help? Do we all live close by to each other? Do we buy a property together and live in separate corners and connect? So for us, getting older is going to be a very interesting experience and exercise, because it is a different time and we're also childless. So it's a very
and I think, well, even if you've got children, you see the people just dumped at retirement homes, and their kids never come to see them. So even people who have
very
children
true.
need to plan for their old age, as if their kids don't exist, because they might not exist. Like, they get busy, they don't really enjoy spending time with their parents. So
My mum is my mum sometimes goes the other way, where she's like, "Oh no, I don't want you to do that." It's like, but I want to help you and I want to support you, and I love that she lives in her own home. But it's that having that fine balance of being able to have support as well, so that
mm,
and she's very aware of when we're together, she wants to have a really good quality time together. She doesn't want it to be doing chores or tasks that maybe somebody else can do. Yeah, I
yeah,
think so with so much in life now, Kate, we need to do things more consciously, don't we?
yeah, yeah.
Not
And I
rely
think
on how it happened in the past.
I think we need to start to think about community, of building community and community based solutions. And I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Anne Marie Elias, and she's doing her PhD at UTS alongside me, and she's doing it on aged care. And she's really concerned, especially with women over 50, the fastest growing group of people who don't have homes. And
Yeah.
she's really concerned that, women are not going to be able to age gracefully in a retirement village somewhere, because they won't even have a home. They'll be living in a car or something. So it's a really important issue, and not everybody can have a happy outcome like these lovely nuns.
Yeah. I love that they're spunky though.
I love them. They're just gorgeous. So I think that's all we've got to talk about this week. But I did want to say that we're going to start a new series where we're going to do sort of a deconstructing all the major political parties in Australia. So we're going to start with the Liberal Party, then we're going to do the Labor Party, then we're going to do the Greens, and then we're going to do the Teals. Even though they're not a party, we're going to do some investigations and just deconstruct how they work, what they're on about, showcase some of the things that they really believe and champion, just so people can understand them. Because I think a lot of people kind of look at politics as a very distant thing, and not many people are members. We did in one of the last episodes where there's so few members of political parties.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the Rest is Politics UK recently, and Rory Stewart was talking about after the Second World War, the Tory party could easily letterbox in local areas because they had so many members that every street in the UK had a member. And there's like a handful of people in comparison to that. So we've gone from really widespread membership of the Liberal Party and the Labor Party in Australia, the Tory Party and Labor Party in the UK, to really minuscule numbers. So I think it's just worthwhile doing some kind of deep dive to go, what are these things we call parties, and what are they on about?
I think it's a great way to sort of shed light on, to show people where they are aligned themselves. Like I always say, I'm a centrist. I believe that people who work hard should have the rewards, and I believe people who don't have the same advantages should also be supported. And I think when you look at the different parties and what we traditionally think is Labor and Liberal, Kate, are not what they are so much. And when people go woke independence, are they, i.e. what is woke? I really want to do that as the next slide.
Well, let's do that as a separate thing.
But I didn't, what is exactly like this when people go woke independence, and then when you share, because we've got Allegra Spender, she's our member, and whenever people sort of say anything, and then I share something that she's doing, or sign this, or go to this, or read this, and they go, oh, I really care about that. And it's like, it's around having that thinking. And I do think in the future we will be around that issues based. We will be around that care being given, not necessarily aligned with a side or a party that doesn't resonate. But I just, while you were speaking, my friend Nadia, shout out to Nadia, when I first met her, she grew up in Italy. I met her as an adult, and she said to me, where you lived, suburb, like not just, or the side of the suburb, told people what political party you were aligned to. What football team you went for told people where you were aligned to. What songs you liked told people what political party you're aligned to. And I remember being so shocked that how could things be so black and white? Because in Australia, I didn't sort of experience that. I really wasn't that aware.
That's what used to be, Nancy. So that's what it used to be like before the 70s. But literally, if you lived in a working class area, you were a union member.
Yeah.
And you barracked for your local football team. You didn't barrack for one that was across town. You were part of that community. And I think this is the next big thing. And this is why I think the Tills are really resonating, because they're community-based independence. I think that community piece is an important piece.
Sorry.
Herbie.
Ringo's home, so of course Herbie has to go and greet him. Ringo lives upstairs. Sorry, everybody. It's real life. But I think you're exactly right, Kate, because they are where you live right now and what is important to you. For us, it's like a high school. We don't have a local government high school in the area. So important to have. That might not be 2 suburbs away or the next electorate away. I will muzzle him next podcast, I promise. I'm sorry. They love each other. They literally sniff through the door, because I'm not going to open that door, so they'll sniff each other through the door. Dog life. But sorry, and so I wanted to go, what you were saying about union, I totally forgot to include this slide because it's very relevant. Starbucks have closed a whole heap of their stores worldwide, not just in America, and now they've sort of done the analysis, and it's not purely financial based. They've shut the union shops down.
Yep, because as they say, there is power in a union.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Amazon, look at, to get the union into Amazon was such a big thing. So I think it's really important to understand, when people go union and they go, like, we weren't allowed to join the union when I was a management cadet at Grace Brothers. We weren't allowed to join the retail union because we were management. But we had a respect for what the union did. So whenever we had issues, we'd go and speak to the union delegates because we understood that. And I think that understanding how these things have ramifications through community and through everyday life and the benefits people get from them will make people understand how the world that we live in actually works, and not through the lens of what the party says.
Well, maybe we'll add the unions to that deconstruction of the parties in Australia, because I think they're a big part of the landscape.
Yep, I think that's, and they're doing such. I'm going to say her name. Do you follow? Is it Wall Streck? On, I think she's on
Oh
TikTok.
yeah, I've seen her.
Stark Streck. She's also one of the. I watch her posts, whether it's on TikTok or Insta or it used to be on Blue Sky. I don't think she's there anymore. She's daily. She breaks things down like Punters Politics. They break things down into such a great way around this is how it affects your life as it is today, without all the politics speak. But she is so. When I found out she was a union, very very strong union activist, I was
Because you know, like the unions, there were problems with the unions back in the 70s.
Yeah.
We'll do a deep dive on the unions because
Yeah.
it's a really interesting history. And if you understand the benefits we've got in Australia because of the unions and how
Absolutely.
things have shifted since, it's a really interesting story. So I reckon we'll do that as a deep dive.
And connect, and it is union, community power and people power. Like it all comes down to we have so much agency that we think we don't have when we
The
act
thing
together.
is that, you know, if you look at America, where you're forced to negotiate as a single human being against a corporation, and so you have very little power in negotiations with them. This is why they don't like unions in the US.
Yeah.
And basically, the history of the US since like the 1860s is basically the history of breaking the unions.
Where were we at the fascism talk that we went to at the Opera House as part of the Curious Festival? They would, you know, and it is this thing I've always had in my head: how do Americans not have universal health care? And Anna asked both speakers about that. How has this not been something that America's been able to organise? And they said that white Americans, would rather not have it if it meant that the two black people in their street would also have it. And
Yeah, it was
do you remember?
completely to lock out the blacks.
I just
They
it still
didn't
takes
want
my
black
breath
people
away
to
to
get it.
say that. You know, that the collective has really done themselves away by not acting. Well, they aren't the collective, are they? But when you see something like that and you think it can change, that would have made such generational change for America, you know. But again, it's agenda driven. So, so many great things to talk about.
So many interesting topics.
So
Here
many.
are the places that you can find us
Please
online.
connect.
Please reach out. We'll be back soon. Not sure how soon, but soon. Thanks, Nancy. Lovely to see you.
Always great to see you, Kate. And I look forward to sharing all of our great clips and info. And we didn't see Maxie today, Kate, when I could actually see your beautiful face.
No, he's gone. He's just gone. He's heard his name. He possibly thinks there may be a WALK in the offing.
Yes, that's a reward I'm going to pay now too. Love you, lovely. Thank you so much, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.